involve qualms and involve long-held inclinations. Local fairy tale scholars have had a computational inclination. The historic geographic method induced them to amass huge tale collection libraries to compile tale type motif indexes. Note, serendipitously we have them before it turned 5 Ks. The goal, like other philologically driven concerns, always involved more than categorizing minute details, being nothing less than to trace the origins and implications of traditional stories across time and space, and to understand the relationship of texts, languages, literatures, cultures, and nations. Still, in the past decade or so, the instigation of computer-generated visualizations of fairy tale data feels like these inclinations to bring together computation and narrative are meeting again for the first time. Last year at University, in concert with the application for the Shirk Partnership Grant envisioned by Pauline Greenhill, I investigated with Jarom McDonald, director of the BYU Office of Digital Humanities, a mentored environment grant. I'm trying to see how many acronyms I can fit into once. To visualize a fairy tale on TV bibliography. Known in-house as the teleography, this data was thoughtfully gathered and arranged by Kendra Magistens for the essay collection Channeling Wonder, Fairy Tales on Television, published this fall by Wayne State University Press. Under the auspices of the BYU Humanities Center Humanities Lab, in the fall of 2013, just as we were doing the grant application, I learned about the capabilities of big data projects and visualizations to use algorithms and swaths of data to create maps, charts, and visual representations of latent relationships and patterns. My initial inclination to visualize the teleography involved curiosity and the computer's capacity for counting. I mostly wanted to know which of all the fairy tales in teleography land was fairest of them all and who appeared most on television. Not the most conceptually rich inquiry, but a starting point. Jarom signed on because fairy tales on television have an innate appeal. The project has potential to identify salient relationships and ask deep research questions, deeper than my own. And the scope of the teleography is manageable. I applied for the internal MEG because it supports a research team, including undergraduate and graduate students working together on a faculty-directed project. And thus, Madeline gets to come to be more than just the technological helper. She has her own better research question that she'll present at a later time. So what are the qualms of this digital humanities project reading a fairy tale on TV bibliography? The concept of visualizing wonder through counting, sorting, browsing, and seeing taps into a deep ambivalence of uniting the measurable, the visual, and the concrete with the ethereal, imaginative, and wonderful. In terms of scholarly conversations in the humanities, some of these qualms center on the reception of images and of tales themselves, and the effect of the visual and the wondrous on everyday life. Simply put, there are qualms about the ability of images to short-circuit thought because of their seductive simplicity, and qualms about the ability of tales to short-circuit life choices because of their instructive and entertaining and ideological plots and characters. These qualms then relate to larger concerns about the reception of images and tales, that they have the power to circumvent critical thinking and decision-making. The meeting of digital humanities and intermedial tales thus becomes a double-edged wand, admitting that humans may become caught up in images, stories, and technologies and social relations to damaging and destructive ends, while also allowing that such involvement may be imperative for reaching the most fulfilling and generative human potential. Wonder itself may be an epitome of the humanities, with intermediality the preferred mode of human communication. William A. Burt Wilson, my mentor at BYU, finds the need to use all available expressive forms to make and share patterns as an activity intensely human, bordering on the divine. He writes, "It is this human need to combine words, sounds, colors, shapes, and movements into aesthetically pleasing patterns that separates us most clearly from the rest of the animal kingdom and makes us most like God." And fairy tales, those stories of wonder that couch human potential in fantastic places, times, and situations, thrive on wonder and multiple modes of communication technologies and sensory expression. Christina Bakulega writes, "As an effect, wonder involves both awe and curiosity. Fairy tales can invite us to dwell in astonishment and explore new possibilities, to engage in wondering and wandering. While fairy tales point out that it is intensely human to need multimodal expression to engage in wonder, the qualms remain that images and tales may somehow overpower the imperatives of being an educated human being. As Brigham Young, founder of my own university, has stated, education is the power to think clearly, the power to act well in the world's work, and the power to appreciate life. Qualms remain for scholars and the public that images and tales, united by a computerized search for patterns, may short-circuit the clear thinking and well-acting that lead to a life worth appreciating. Peggy Orenstein outlines and explores these very qualms in terms of socializing little girls in her memorably titled Cinderella, Ate My Daughter. Still, we recognize that images and tales can enhance thinking and decision-making by clarifying patterns, relationships, and possibilities. As Martin Jessup asserts, there exists an instinctive deep understanding that one can enhance one's thought processes by finding ways of linking external perception with internal mental processes. Digital technology has created a new medium for these tools that provide extended functionality and many new opportunities for development. In terms of textual analysis through digital humanities projects, Alan Wood claims, computationally assisted text analysis, we realize, is a way to experiment with literature to bring out, among other features, its latent social network and that of the characters in its imaginative worlds. Part of the appeal of united digital humanities with Intermedial tales involves exactly these opportunities to see latent relationships more clearly, and thus to think more rigorously about the patterns and their implications. I briefly will present 3 visualizations that put digital humanities and Intermedial tales together to show the potential for extending thought and enhancing decision-making. Jeana Jorgensen's dissertation work sought, in part, to answer the question, do fairy tales construct and represent bodies differently according to gender? She collaborated with Weingart, a PhD student who focuses on historical scientific research through the lens of large-scale data analysis. Jorgensen hand-coded tales from 6 tale collections, many of them prepared by Jack Sykes, focusing not only on gender and body parts, but also on age references. This visualization charts the occurrences of adjectives describing the body as they correlate with references to the old male, young female, and old female. The width of the line indicates the frequency of the connection. We see that young males are most frequently young and little, while young females are more frequently beautiful, and then young or little. Old males and females are most often just old, while old females are occasionally beautiful or wicked, and old males are good, or possibly ghastly looking. The patterns show that aesthetic descriptions apply more to women than men, and that age becomes important as an adjectival marker because it's not the norm in the tales. Youth is the default character. Elizabeth Durnley's project involves curating a database and mapping breadth and lays as they circulated in medieval Europe. She describes the lays as short, rhymed stories about love, chivalry, and the supernatural, which became popular in the later Middle Ages. One visualization identifies the themes and motifs in the 12 lays reported by Rudy in France. The titles appear across the top, and the themes and motifs appear in relation with specific titles and with the number of times they're mentioned. As Durnley describes, essentially, I've gone back to the tube map idea of lines and stations, where each lay is a line, each motif is a station, and motifs shared by more than one lay or interchange stations. However, this is a much freer design. And so where there are more circles together, that's where more of the stories are overlapping with a certain trait. Durnley notes the visualization shows the same genre traits that are expressed in the story prologue. The prologue says that the lays are about love, and the visualization bears this out. With our visualization of tale types and television genres, we get the patterns that also evoke deeper research questions. Cinderella, ATU 510A, wins the Ferris Autobiography Leonard Award. We see the variety of ways the story has been told on television, primarily as drama and comedy, but also in genres as diverse as children's and reality TV. So, with this visualization, that is one whole week old. Jarom calls it a chord diagram. And so on the right, we have ATU numbers of the different fairy tales that Kendra noted were on television. And then on the left, we have television genres such as children, drama, action, comedy, soap opera, teeny one. So the width of the band shows the quantity of appearances in the database. So So that's how we can see that 510A is the winner. And we can also then trace which genres it has appeared in. And we can go the other way and go from the genre to see which stories have been most likely to appear. The link with reality TV has been addressed by Linda Lee in her channeling on her essay. So when this is available, which we hope it will be online, scholars can extend her essay to other visualized genres or to other tales that also have some reality TV connection. So there's a literary tale, Beauty and the Beast, and other tales that also are appearing in connection with reality TV. This visualization and its partner that divides the data by the 4 major U.S. television networks demonstrate the interactive and iterative aspects of digital humanities meeting intermedial fairy tales. So in this one, we see which of the 4 major U.S. networks have done fairy tales the most often. ABC is the most, CBS was the least, Fox, and then NBC. And we also can see that there are genre differences. Some networks are more prone to different genres. Good visualizations invite interaction and quickly spark inquiry as viewers explore the patterns and relationships and ask questions about what is, and also importantly, what is not made apparent through the image and its extensions to oral, print, and audiovisual text and context. Images and tales have been imbricated in the qualms and possibilities of modernity, at least since the late 17th century, often associated with the primitive, emotional, and pre-modern. W.J.T. Mitchell compares images to the subaltern. If the power of images is like the power of the weak, that may be why their desire is correspondingly strong, to make up for their actual impotence. Yet this impotence is also a construct, and a consequence of impulses toward control and domination. As Jennifer Schachter wisely asserts in National Dreams, against a background of morality, superstition, and rustic simplicity, emerges a portrait of modern, literate, cosmopolitan Englishness. This portrait is as imaginative, as powerful, and as enticing as any fairy tale. So tales and tale-tellers do not want the power of the weak. And Mitchell himself undoes the subaltern position in the conclusion of his essay, What Do Pictures Really Want? Achieving a more egalitarian awareness that vision is as important as language in mediating social relations, and it is not reducible to language, to the sign, or to discourse. Pictures want equal rights with language, not to be turned into language. Schachter's book, along with Christina Bakuega's legendary Hawaii, Sadhan Naitani's books, and my Journal of American Folklore article on turn of the 20th century North American Indian tale collections, seek to unmake hierarchies and remember the agency and rights of indigenous storytellers and their tales to unite languages, clans, and communities. Likewise, the meaning of digital humanities and intermedial fairy tales is an assurance that images and tales want to be interactive and iterative. Their influences need not be static nor cognitively and ideologically monologic. As Henry Glasser reminds us, if tradition is a people's creation out of their own past, its character is not stasis but continuity. Its opposite is not change but aggression. The intrusion of a power that thwarts the course of development. A better history would speak of the engagement of wills, of the interaction among traditions, each fraught with value, all striving toward their several visions of the future. Visualizations based on databases and algorithms make readily apparent latent or embedded patterns in relationships that lead to further inquiry and richer interpretations. The construction of visualization is only one step in the process that should include close reading of texts, whether oral, print, or audiovisual, analysis of measurable and consideration of thematic, historical, ideological, and cultural context. Visualizations offer something more and something different, because rather like a microscope and a telescope, they make patterns and relationships that are not so apparent when looking at the text and bibliographic information alone. They can zoom in and zoom out. They certainly have limitations as well. As the construction of type and motif indexes taught folklorists, the attachment to apparatus and method can become time-consuming, self-sustaining, and self-fulfilling at the expense of making interpretations and applications. So in a way, they're only as good as the questions that we bring to them and the interpretations that we take from them. The qualms indicate what is at stake: creativity, agency, living well with oneself and others, and having a world worth living in. Bergman's statement about education reminds us what is possible when digital humanities and intermedial fairy tales meet. Thinking clearly, acting well, appreciating life more fully, more creatively, or in other words, which part of the double-edged wand, or which way are we going to go? And as human beings, we're likely to go either way, but sometimes we just circle. The pressure point of the reception of images and tales leads directly to the larger issues of desire and power in social relations, the consequences of life choices, and possibilities of making a world. Ryan emphasizes the significance of reception. While the author creates the story world through the production of signs, it is the reader, spectator, listener, or player who uses the blueprint of the finished text to construct the mental image of this world. Her focus on intermediality admits that while such blueprints exist, rarely do readers, spectators, listeners, and players have only a finished text to work with, because through intermediality, texts of a given medium send tendrils toward other media, as many of the presentations so far have already shown. Fairy tales seem particularly prone to shooting out such intermediate tendrils. In a way, a visualization, like a story, and like a person, and like a community, contains within itself several visions of the past, present, and future. Visualizing wonder is one potentially productive offshoot to extend the possibilities of critical thinking, to appreciate the possibilities and limitations of seeing and knowing, of being human with latent relations toward the wondrous. Thank you.